Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us at our virtual artist talk tonight with Stephanie and Eleanor. This talk is part of their exhibition that's on now at Westland Gallery called The Bright Side. And we had a reception this past Saturday. Despite the rain, it was really good. We had people come out after the clouds kind of cleared up a little bit, and we had a really nice weekend. So if anyone was there on Saturday, thank you for coming out to that as well. And we're looking forward to diving in a little bit more to the artist's stories tonight, their technique, what has inspired the collection that's on the walls right now. So we're looking forward to that. Thank you, Stephanie and Eleanor, for making a little time for this talk tonight.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Great. I think I'll start with some early career stories, because especially with you, Stephanie, this is the first time that we've worked with you at Westland Gallery. And you've mentioned to me before that you came from a creative and industrious family.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I just think, none of my family is professional artists or anything like that, but art was always a big part of my life growing up, and it was just encouragement to be creative. So, nothing special, but we'd get craft books from the library and we'd set out just plain paper and markers and just make things. And I guess what I mean by industrious is that my parents kind of, they're always just sort of manipulating things to make them better. So if something comes from a store and it's not designed the way they want, they were hackers before that was a thing.
Yeah.
So that's been sort of instilled in me. So I always feel like you can always improve and change things as you go. And just because it's the way it is now, it doesn't have to be. So yeah.
That's great. I love that. I think that's a great attitude to have. And I imagine it was helpful to you in developing your style. We'll get back to that later, but you have a unique style. I've never seen anyone lay the paint on this thick, so I'm sure a can-do attitude went a long way when you were developing your technique. And you went to school for art as well. You did your BFA at Queen's?
Yes, I did. Yes.
What was your experience there?
I really loved it. So my older brother went to Queen's for engineering, and I visited him when I was in high school, and I just fell in love with the campus there. And the program is really small, so I felt like I just felt like I would have a one-on-one kind of experience. So I really did like it. It was small and intimate, and I met some great friends. We got to try, obviously, different techniques. It wasn't just painting or anything like that, like sculpture, all that. So but once I oil painted, it was just in high school, we only ever acrylic painted. So I never even tried oils until university. And then that's where the love affair became this is what I want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a very limited exposure to arts. I was always artistic in high school, but not until university gained exposure to the whole world of possibilities of different medium. Eleanor, you went to school for art as well, and actually 3 different post-secondary programs. Is that right? UWO, OCAD, and Alberta?
Yeah, I went to UWO in London, and I also started my university in San Diego. So our family moved to San Diego after grade 13. And I got to take some other courses. They didn't even have a fine arts program in San Diego. And then I went to Western and finished my degree there, but I also continued my education through OCA. At the time, it was OCA.
Yep.
And then I moved to Alberta and I took some courses at ACA, which is also now a university. So the Alberta College of Art was in Calgary. And I've always continued to take courses and workshops to further my learning, because I think it just makes your approach that much better. Enhances what you do. Yeah.
I love that approach to education, kind of self-directed and taking the courses that appeal to you. Yeah. Any courses that still stand out all these years later as foundational?
Well, I started painting in watercolor, I think because my grandmother, whose name is also Eleanor, was a watercolor painter, and I didn't take watercolor in university. I didn't take it until I went to O okay, okay, OCA.
Either
Um,
or.
Either or, yeah. And I just loved it. And so I started painting in watercolor, and I took a workshop with Skip Lawrence years ago, and he changed the way I worked in watercolor for forever. And but I loved the bold colors that he used,
Mhm.
and I thought, it's not enough for me to just paint on a 22 by 30 sheet of paper. I want to paint something bigger than that. So I pushed myself and went into acrylic from that.
Mhm.
And I love the colors that you can get with acrylic, and I love the size that you can paint with. But it was so hard to transfer from watercolor to acrylic because acrylic dries so fast. So it was like a struggle. I was fighting with this paint that dried instantaneously, and it was a bit of a fight, a love hate sort of thing in the beginning. But
Yeah.
I really like it now. So
Yeah, that's great. It can be a challenge moving from into a new medium because you're bringing all of your techniques from the first one. They're not going to quite be a fit because that's the point. You're trying something new, but you have to find your way a little bit.
yeah.
Stephanie, you were nodding along. I know you've worked in watercolor as well as oils.
Yes. Yeah. I kind of dabble in it. I'm self-taught, but the same, just the transition from both mediums there, it's just so different. So kind of switching your mindset can be challenging,
Mhm.
just the way the paint behaves. Yeah.
Absolutely. I wanted to talk a little bit as well about this kind of transitionary period that happens after you've done some schooling. And I know, Eleanor, you've continued to seek out new education opportunities. But between that and really finding your groove as a professional artist, it's not a clear-cut path, and everyone takes a different way. So I'd love if you could both share your experiences of those early years after university and how you came to be a professional artist. Eleanor, if you want to start.
After university, I really wanted to pay my rent. So I knew that being an artist wasn't going to do that, or at least I didn't think it could. So I worked in advertising for about 8 to 10 years, I guess.
Mhm.
And then when my son was born, I said, okay, I want to start painting now. Now's my chance. So I started working slowly when I had time, when he was sleeping, and it just grew from there. So that was 33 years ago.
Mhm. It can be very scary to make that leap, and I think that's why this period of time like happens for so many artists, right? You kind of have to seek out a couple different opportunities. I've heard it described as like set up a couple different legs for your table, right? You're still painting, but you're doing design work or you're doing teaching workshops or whatever you are
Mhm.
in those early years. Stephanie, you have sort of a similar experience. Can you tell us about
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, because although I loved school, once I left, I kind of was paralyzed. I didn't know how could I actually, there was no roadmap of how to become professional. I didn't know what to do and how to enter that world. And I was kind of young and just not sure what to do. So
Mhm.
I got just 9 to 5 jobs. I bounced around a lot, trying to find some sort of happiness, and I wasn't really creating. After I graduated, I was just working in jobs and not realizing that not having that in my life wasn't giving me a lot of peace. And then once I sort of realized that I needed to be creative in some sort of capacity, I set up in my kitchen while I was still working full time. And then it kind of grew from there. And I realized like, this is what I want to do. And over a period of time, I got back into it and decided that, yeah, this is my path. And
Mhm.
yeah.
Absolutely. You
Also,
had
working with a little one is not easy. Yeah.
Yeah, you also started really painting when you had a young a baby and a toddler at home, right? That's when you
Yeah.
started really
Yeah.
getting into it.
So,
There was one job that you mentioned on your website where you had some exposure to some other professional artists.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I used to work for, it used to be called Arts for Children and Youth, AFCY, but they've since changed their name to Vibe Arts in Toronto. And it's a
Mhm.
wonderful not-for-profit. And I worked with coordinating supplies, and I wasn't like being creative necessarily myself that much, but I was seeing other artists create murals and make these programs and be instructors and inspire other people. And I was like, oh my God, okay, so there's a way to do this. and it's not rocket science. Like, it kind of gave me the inspiration and the little kick in the butt to just go for it and start making art again.
Mm-hmm.
Because until that time, I really wasn't doing anything creative. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it was nice to find that part of myself again.
Yeah, that can be really inspiring. Eleanor, were there any kind of role models for you in your early career that you looked to?
Well, my grandmother, who painted in watercolor,
Yeah.
and she lived on Stony Lake up near Lakefield, and would go to a life drawing class every week, and sometimes she'd take me with her, and
Oh, that's
it was
amazing.
great. Yeah, yeah, it was a lot of fun, and she was fantastic. She was a great watercolorist and could draw really well, and so I appreciated her talent, and I
Mm-hmm.
thought that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
Another thing that stands out in my mind was when I was 12, our family traveled out west to Banff, and I walked into a gallery there, and there was a woman standing painting landscape on an easel at the back of the gallery. I don't know who she was or where. I was so young, but I looked at her and I thought, that's what I want to do. I want to be that person.
Yeah, that's the coolest job.
Yeah. So I've known for a long time that's what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Wonderful. So let's talk a little bit about technique. We touched on it a bit in that you both have done watercolor and transitioned into Eleanor for yourself acrylic and Stephanie oils. Eleanor, if you want to share a little bit without giving away any of your trade secrets, but you have a unique way of working with acrylics, and I really think it kind of pulls on that experience in watercolor because you do a lot of these you really play up the transparencies that you can get with acrylic. And if you could get the chance to see Eleanor's work in person, please do come by. When you get up close, there are so many colors. You've got pink on the surface, but you can see a rainbow of colors in behind.
Yeah, I that comes from my watercolor background, is layering the colors so that they actually glow. You
Mm-hmm.
put one color on top of another, and I do thin my paint with gel medium, so it's like working with water and watercolor and thinning the pigment. And then my last layers are usually my opaque colors, but I intentionally leave bits of the under painting showing with every layer so that you can actually look at it's a layer cake of paint on my surface. But I don't work like Stephanie, where I build up colors and I mix the colors and do that. I layer the colors almost right out of the tube, if you will. Very pure.
Yeah, like the color mixing almost happens because of like all those transparencies on top of each other, right?
Yeah.
Does the gel medium change the drying time at all? Did that help with that struggle, or did you just have to get used to it?
It does. I started off with acrylic trying to use retarder so that it would actually slow the drying time. But I don't like what it does with the movement of the paint so much. So I went back to just fighting with that drying time. I do work quickly anyway. So yeah.
Well, you've mastered it for sure. Stephanie, for yourself. So Stephanie's paintings, there's one of them behind me here. You really, again, see them in person if you can, but you use just a really thick impasto technique. So the paint is coming up off the canvas. Like in some areas, I'd say almost an inch it comes up off the canvas. Yeah. And so what was your process? How did you come to know that was the way you wanted to paint? Yeah.
It was actually just kind of gradual, and I think it was actually in opposition to my working with watercolor, because I had started back in my school days. I was doing more realistic like portraiture and figures, and I did enjoy that, but I don't find a lot of freedom in that. And when I started painting with watercolor, I kind of did it in such a loose, free style, but being a flat piece of paper, there was something that this tactile quality that I just wanted to try with oils. And I was painting flowers with watercolor. So I thought, well, let's try flowers in oil. And something about that, I think I just was like resisting the flatness, and I just wanted to build them up. And I found that it just gave this movement and life to them. And then just gradually over time, they got thicker and thicker, and I had more fun with layering. So, and blending on the actual canvas, like mixing a little bit to the side and then seeing how they blend with my palette knife. So yeah, it's sort of like an exploration.
There's lots of blending on the surface. Like one of your marks will have like several different, colors standing apart and blending together. It's very beautiful. You worked a bit with brushes at the beginning, but not so much anymore.
Yeah, not so much anymore. I just sort of, it was all kind of a transition. So I used to kind of do more of like a wash with thin oil paint diluted in the backgrounds. And then it just sort of transitioned to just wanting to use the knife totally and just kind of go for it. Dive right in.
Fantastic. So this show, we called it The Bright Side, and I enjoy exhibitions like this where we have the opportunity to bring together two artists who haven't met each other before and kind of make you guys work together a little bit, and I like those relationships that come out of it. So how did you come up with the title The Bright Side? Eleanor, do you want to talk about that?
Well, both Stephanie and I talked before we had come up with any ideas, and both of us said that we wanted it to be a really positive, because I think our work both has that element to it. So we wanted to express that's what comes out of both of our art. So I always go to sayings when I think of something. Either it's a phrase from a song or a saying when I'm naming a painting, or something that has a double meaning almost. And my colors that I work with are bright. So I had this stuck in my head that let's look on the bright side, like as a positive way of looking at art and what we do. And I think we went from there. And Stephanie, you said that let's just shorten it to the bright side. So
yeah, or I think Danielle mentioned it, and I thought that it just sort of seemed simple and perfect. So yeah.
I liked about the bright side versus look on the bright side. I don't know, the gallery feels like the bright side. Like if there was a place that was just the bright side, that's what's happening in the gallery right now. So yeah, it's nice. Your work's like very interesting complement to each other, because it's different in some ways, but there is a similar like energy about it, I think. And that happiness coming through. Do you find, as both painters who paint happy, do you need to be in a good mood to go into the studio? How do you deal with it if you're not in a good mood that day?
I think it becomes a good mood once I start, if I'm not in a good mood. Like, because I'm not always in a good mood, but you just have to paint when you have to paint. So sometimes you just try to you focus on like what is good about it, right? And I love mixing color and just playing. So yeah, that's sort of where it starts. And I don't know.
Goes from there. How about you, Eleanor?
Well, I paint almost every day, so I can't always be in a good mood, but I do find it therapeutic. So if I'm in a bad mood, it's a good place for me to be. If I'm in a great mood, then sometimes the work gets done without I don't even know how it happens. It just happens. And I end up with a painting at the end. I go, wow, that was easy.
Those are the best days.
What was your experience the last year and a half during COVID painting? We'll start with Eleanor, then we'll go to you, Stephanie. Has it changed your practice at all? I
painted more for sure. Because there wasn't very much else to do, and it was a great way to not think about the fact that there wasn't anything else to do. I found that my work changed, especially in the beginning. I was being very experimental and in doing some different things, and I still have some of those pieces, and I've posted them on Instagram and whatnot. But I think my work did change, and actually the series that's behind me is this floral series that I started during COVID, and it was fun because it didn't have any reference at all whatsoever, and they just came out of my head. And I loved that experience because I don't paint abstract really. And these are as close to abstract as I'll get, I think. But I also spent a lot of time walking my dog in the ravine near where I lived. And it used to be the task that I would do because he has to go for a walk 3 times a day. But it became the one thing I look forward to every morning. So that was my inspiration for a lot of the work that's at the gallery right now, were those walks in the ravine. And I loved every single moment that I was down there because it was so beautiful. And I looked at it differently, completely differently because of COVID.
Yeah. Yeah, we look at a lot of us, spend time looking at our regular daily activities and the ones that were still available to us in a different way this year, for sure. And so, yes, that's what I've been telling folks who've come in to see the show. A lot of this work is inspired by those ravine walks that you mentioned. And it kind of goes through the seasons a little bit as well, which is really nice. So kind of like a close-up look at a very specific location in your life this year.
But I do try to find the universal when I paint so that it could be anywhere and people could look at it and say, oh, that reminds me of whatever, rather than having it a specific place in mind. But
yeah. Stephanie, how's your experience been this last year?
Yeah, so I think it was highs and lows, I guess, for the initial part of lockdown, because a lot of it was balancing. Sometimes my son was in care and sometimes my husband and I were just juggling all of it. So what I used to have most days to paint became, when do I paint? And figuring that out. And it was sort of like, it was such a gift. And I realized how much of a gift it was to have that time when I could take it. And same with Eleanor. I usually take my daily walk and used to go with my dogs, but he's passed away. So, but I would still take my walks. And that's like also my time to just sort of tune out the world and realizing and appreciating that time of peace too. And I think I wanted to even more reflect joy in my work and more color. I think I was really interested in adding a bit more vibrancy than I had been previously. So that was a bit of a change. And in terms of like the highs and lows, I think it was reflected. I was thinking of a lot of like cycles of nature and things like that. And I wanted to transition from dark colors into light and have this sense of movement and a flow to it, because things are never just up. It's always going, there's always a nature of up and down. So
Seasons kind of, but not maybe seasons in nature. That's kind of interesting.
More like
Eleanor taking into work. Sorry, Stephanie, just the ebbs and
flows.
Oh no,
just like almost in like maybe weather, like rain and then sun, or like not necessarily seasons, but just rhythms of nature, rhythms of life, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Fascinating. Well, I think you both had that kind of, it's interesting that you both had that response to this time of difficulty, because, artists have processed this year in so many different ways in their work. But Eleanor, the florals that you brought us at the beginning were very, very happy. And we were putting them in the window all the time because we were like, this is what we need. They're so joyful. And Stephanie, your work gives that same energy. So it's really great. Excellent show. Is there anything that you have in this experience of getting to know each other just a little bit? I know you talked a bit, about the show title and a bit on Saturday during the reception. What have you enjoyed about kind of working together or admired about each other's paintings or been surprised about how it worked in the show? Anyone have any comments?
I can start. Yeah. I was just, I love when, Eleanor, you mentioned that your work with the layering glows, because that was the first thing when I saw it in person. I mean, you can tell also through photographs, but I just thought, I was taken aback by the light and the way you play with light. And I literally thought to myself, they glow. That was the first thing that came to me. So I love that you said that. But I just think the whole process, I was so thankful to be a part of this. And obviously my first time working with Westland with Eleanor. So I was just thrilled and honored to be part of it. So, and it was really nice to meet everyone.
Yeah, we had fun on Saturday.
Yeah, we did. Yeah,
we did. Yeah. I wanted to say too how much I can respect what Stephanie's going through being a mom of a young child and being an artist at the same time, because it's not like a 9 to 5 job. Even though you have your son in daycare, it's still that creative pull that you have at all days of all hours of the day. And I just want to say how brave it is of you to do what you're doing and to work the way that you have and create how well you create. It's remarkable. And I don't think you should take it for granted how hard you work with that and a child at the same time. It's hard. So but your work too has to be seen in person, because it really doesn't come across even in photographs. The texture and the depth that you have in each piece is incredible. So.
Yes, I've been posting so many close-up shots this exhibition, I feel like, of both your work. So we have the opportunity to see a little bit of Stephanie's studio this evening. Unfortunately, not with Eleanor, I imagine, yet. Eleanor, you've just moved into a new house, so you're still getting set up, I imagine.
Yes.
Yes.
There's actually drills going on upstairs right now because there's workmen upstairs. So I'm in the basement hiding from all of this.
Is the shelving that they're building for your studio?
No, it's actually in my bedroom, but
but you're working on getting set up, and I look forward to seeing it when you are, because I enjoy seeing artists' creative spaces. It's always interesting. So Stephanie, do you want to give us a quick little walk around?
I can, sure. Don't mind some of my bags. I wasn't expecting to show you around. Okay. So my studio is in my basement. I've taken over more and more space down here as things have gone. So this is where I was storing all of the Westland showpieces, but then now I've moved in more things that need restretching and other stuff. So once it clears out, I just fill it right back up again.
Absolutely. Doesn't matter how much space there is, it will get full.
I have a little sort of like sitting area where like I just do some like either drawing or reading or whatever, have a tea, have a break. I used to have more watercolor tables set up down here, but I haven't been doing that much, so I moved that around. There's some storage and books, and then this is sort of my this is my Oreo studio. Don't mind the laundry bin. So where can I go? So there's more storage shelves, and here's my palette.
Wow.
So I have things, usually I have stuff on the go, but I'm kind of just finished a lot. So there's empty canvases around. I'm working on a commission, and there's my messy art thing. And so.
Fantastic. I'll let you get back to your seat, and then I have a question about that palette.
It's a little bit of a disaster at the moment, but
so you like to do a lot of color mixing, right? So how many colors do you usually have out on the go? And like you have a whole lot of space there. That's a big palette.
It's basic. So that's actually an IKEA glass tabletop, and I've taken up the entire thing. So I usually just bring out all my colors, everything that I got going on, and then I just sort of see where it takes me and what I'm feeling. I generally have an idea of what sort of the colors or the mood that I want to go for, and then kind of just play and see where it goes. But I don't know if I showed, there's like my cans. I just got quart containers now. That's like, I sort of don't even use that many tubes anymore. I just use
I'm not surprised. You'd go through a lot of tubes. Eleanor, how about you? What's your studio setup going to be like in this new home?
I have, instead of an easel, I put that strapping on the wall that you can click in the brackets and put a piece of wood on them, like a shelving thing that I can lower or raise depending on the size of the canvas.
That's great.
And then if I'm working on a second one or a smaller one, I'll use an easel for that.
Yep.
But I have that on one wall, and I have a big wash light and some track lighting set up so I can paint day and night. And I'm left-handed, so I have all of my other stuff, my brushes and my water and my paint tubes on my left-hand side. And then I have buckets and buckets of more paint tubes because I'm
Yeah.
neurotic. When I go to an art supply store, I have to buy something new every time.
Yeah. That's what Andrew Sucre said during our last artist talk as well. It's just like, running around the art store, picking out new things every time. I'm going to open it up. If there's anyone in the audience that has a question for Stephanie or Eleanor, you're welcome to write in the chat box. There's a chat option here. Or if you want to be unmuted and ask your question as well, please just let me know. I'm happy to do that. Do we have any questions from anyone? We'll give everyone a minute, see if anything comes up. I'll take us for a little walk around the gallery and we can take a look at the show. If either of you have a story to tell about it, any of the paintings in particular, I'd love to hear that as we go around. All right, so here's our lovely Wortley Village out the window, and it's been getting like nice and busy again here. Everyone's getting back from their summer holidays and coming into Wortley to see the show, so that's been really nice. So here we have a few of Stephanie's pieces. How do you come up with your titles, Stephanie?
So music is a big thing for me while I'm creating. So a lot of them will be to do with like song lyrics or a song, like something to do with the music that I'm listening to at the time, or that it reminds me of once it's finished. So, yeah.
People have commented on both of your titles. So obviously those little snippets of lyrics or sayings, as you were mentioning, Eleanor, they really resonate with people. What kind of music do you listen to?
Well, it just sort of depends. Like sometimes I just search for a mood on Spotify and whatever random playlist comes up, and then I discover new things. Sometimes it's just like, sometimes I just want to listen to nature sounds, and it really just depends on my mood.
Yeah. All right, so we have some of Eleanor's work on this side here. Where are the like houses and properties in some of the smaller paintings?
I was starting to declutter my studio, and I found a box of photos that I had taken, actual photos, when you used to print your photos and you put them in boxes or in albums, instead of just on your computer. And I found these photos and I thought, oh, I feel like painting something with architecture in it. So I did that. But yeah.
So do you know where they are, or you don't remember anymore?
No, I don't think that they're exactly as they looked in the photo either. I think I just created something with elements in the photo that I saw. So yeah, it doesn't really have a place at all.
They're nice. They have a very like sweet feeling, kind of.
Thank you. Thanks.
So there's a couple more here of Eleanor's, this beautiful diptych. So these are some of the ones where I really noticed the changing of the seasons, because we've got like a bit of autumn foliage. We start having like the trees without the leaves here, which is a really interesting look and quite beautiful. I imagine, is this spring?
That's spring. That's the first color you see is the bluebells.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really
the other one on the left was actually spring too, but the trees in the background that I've created, oranges and yellows, were actually just a very gray band, and little yellow leaves were clinging to this tree from the previous fall, and they'd survived the winter. But I just liked using those colors in that particular painting.
Yeah, they look beautiful. And I mean, that's what you as an artist are supposed to do, right? You take some inspiration and then you add some of your own ideas to it. We have a question for you, Stephanie. How long
Yes.
do they take to dry? That is the question of the exhibition.
Forever and ever and ever. Yeah, I don't like, there's not like one day where all of a sudden it's dry. It just sort of, it takes weeks for the surface to just dry, and then underneath the layers are still squishy and will continue to dry and dry and dry. So probably months to a year totally.
Yeah.
A long time. Yeah.
You have to be very industrious
Yeah.
when you're bringing your work like to us. And so you brought them all in these cases. Do you make those?
Oh yeah, so it was so funny. Al and I were, because I brought them in, and there's a picture that you guys took of me like unscrewing them in the van. It was super glamorous picture. Yeah, no. But my husband's made these wooden braces that so that they can attach to the frame, and I can carry pieces so the surface won't touch. Anyway, he helps me with the building, and I have the idea of what I want. So yeah, it's definitely a challenge in shipping, you know, because I don't want things to get wrecked. So I had to always think of ways to, as though I love the texture, but it always creates extra challenges on top of it. So
yeah, you've done a good job. Good job coping with it. But it does, there's a smell of oil paint in the gallery, and it's funny because so many people, especially the artists, walk in, they're like, and it's like a good smell to the other creatives. It smells like a studio.
Yeah.
But I imagine that they're still curing underneath.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that passes in time.
It does. It does.
Don't,
for anyone, it does go away. It's not forever. It just takes a little bit extra time.
Yeah.
I'm probably so used to it that I don't even smell it anymore. Yeah. So
that's okay. It's not super strong, but you can definitely notice it. So these are some more of Eleanor's pieces here. You definitely get that glow. Hey, Stephanie,
yeah, that was these pieces here, especially like the reflection in the water, like the evening, evening, it felt like evening, and the water was just glistening. Yeah.
Yeah.
To me anyway.
Absolutely. They're beautiful. I think these like more simplistic, like some of your work has a lot more like detail in it, Eleanor, and then some of these are using a bit more like flat space and negative space and really simplifying the forms. And I think in those ones, because there's less visual information, you really appreciate how well you have captured the light. It just like really stands out in those pieces in particular, I think.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions from our audience here? Or any questions that you'd like to ask the other artists? I asked you, Stephanie, about what you're listening to. Sorry, Eleanor, go ahead.
I know someone was asking Stephanie if she is a gardener because she has so many.
Oh,
that's a great question.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I have just found my love of gardening. I am by no means a master. I am there's so much to learn. My mom is a great, wonderful gardener and has shared some knowledge with me and some plants. But I do love flowers. I love plants. I love being in just green. So our backyard, it was a blank slate with a few trees and a lot of weeds, and we're slowly working our way around because it's a lot of work. It's always in progress for years and years and years. So yeah,
that's exciting. Eleanor, you just moved from a condo building into a home with a backyard. Do you have any gardening plans?
Yes, I have a lot of plans. In fact, I haven't stopped moving since I moved in here, and I've just started to get my studio together and started painting today for the very first time. So that was exciting. But I think this season for gardening, I'm just gonna put it aside because I have too many other projects that need to be addressed. including some commission work that I should get to. Yeah.
Yeah, had to take a little hiatus while you were moving, I imagine.
Yeah.
For Eleanor, do you cover the canvas with a particular color when you start?
It's usually some color of red, but for most of my paintings, I use quinacridone magenta and I thin it with gel medium. So it's a very transparent layer and you can see some of the edges of that coming through. But I'll sometimes use transparent pyrrole orange or cadmium red light, and I'll thin them all with gel medium. So
yeah. The bright underpaintings are very distinct in your work because you'll notice them all the way kind of around the edges. You've done a lot of figurative work previous to this exhibition, and a lot of your figures are kind of like outlined in this little glow of a bright color. It's beautiful. Stephanie, how do you start your canvases?
Yeah, I usually like to lay down color too. It's not just one color. I kind of will create sections and sort of make like block out certain areas, and then it gives me an idea of where I want to place some florals and how I want it to grow. Yeah,
very nice. Gives you a bit of like a composition, composition at the beginning.
Yeah.
Do you have to there's just someone's asking about drying for your paintings. Do you pop them into those crates, kind of, for lack of a better word, to dry them and put them on your shelves, or do you lay them flat?
I put them, I guess it's hard to see, maybe when on the studio tour, I have these shelves set up, so I just kind of lean them against the side so they're not touching each other and they just dry there safe for a while. I wouldn't put them into the crates until they're more cured because you kind of have to jiggle them a little bit. Yeah.
Very nice. So you just lean them and hope everything goes well.
Yeah.
I imagine your 4-year-old isn't often allowed in the studio.
No, he's like, it's so funny because he would totally be like,
it's hard to keep the adults from like
people do. I've had art shows where people come up and I was like, I hope you don't get paint on your finger.
That desire doesn't really seem to go away for some reason.
No.
Well, thank you both so much for talking with me tonight and sharing a bit of your stories and your process with our audience. We have been recording this talk, so I'll make sure it gets up onto our YouTube channel and onto our Facebook page for anyone who wasn't able to join us tonight. I'll just mention before everyone goes that this exhibition, The Bright Side, continues until August 7th here in the gallery. So if you want to come and take a look at Eleanor and Stephanie's work and appreciate all those beautiful layers and all that thick texture in person, please come by before August 7th. And this weekend, we're actually going to be open late until 8 o'clock on Saturday night. There's a bit of a shopping event going on in Wortley Village. So if our regular hours don't work for you, we're here till 8 on Saturday night. So thank you, Eleanor and Stephanie, so much.
Thank you, Danielle. Thank you, Stephanie. Nice to see you.
Thank you both.
Yeah.
Fun working with you both on this show.
Thanks.
Have a great evening.
You too.